Now let's work with our next example or next class. We will call this one employee, or I should call it sales employee. That's the name of my class. Public static void main, finish. We will be building a proper class with properties. For example, here I have a property ID and another property called name and another property called sales. So now I will have a constructor and an overloaded constructor. Remember, we learned about this last week, that you can create a constructor, which is a method with the same name as the class name. And the whole purpose of the constructor is to help you initialize the class properties. So this is my overloaded constructor. I will let you guys code this piece. I want you to create a getter and a setter for each property. So just so that you guys know, we have the getters, getter for ID, setter for ID, getter for name, setter for name, getter for sales, and a setter for sales. And that's what I wanted you guys to have as well. Once you guys are done with that, we will now create sales employee object number 1. And sales employee object number 2. So I have 2 sales employees. Since I'm calling the default constructor, they both should have the same sales amount, right? Now, if I call the overloaded constructor for the second one, and I say, well, your ID is 1001. The name is Amy. And the sales is 5,600. Okay. Now, I can compare that if sales employee 1 dot get sales exceeds the sales of the second employee, I can then say that so-and-so person has more sales. Or so-and-so person has less sales. And then let me add another piece to it, than okay. So if I run it, it will just tell me that John has less sales than Amy because John is only making 4,500 and Amy is making 5,600. Do you guys see my comment here on line number 40? I'm adding one more comment here, and you change your code around. Modularize your input. So instead of having 2 inputs in the main, create a separate module that you can call. It will take an input on your behalf, will return a value back to you, and that's what you will feed into your setter. Something that we did last week, last week we learned about modularization. So apply the modularization technique to this example to create a separate module for input instead of taking the input in the main. Or no? Okay. Now, can you guys see my solution that I'm sharing with you guys? So notice what I did here in this example. I created a method called input to which I'm passing a custom message. I have a scanner object. I am displaying the custom message to the user. I'm accepting an input from user and returning it right away. I do not need to hold it in a variable to return. And on line number 43, I'm calling the set sales. And right away, I call the input. I pass my custom message. That custom message is received by MSG, which accepts an input on my behalf, returns an output back to this line where it gets assigned to SE1 sales. And I'm repeating the same process for the second one.